All right, so we're continuing with this problem. If you didn't watch the first video, we've already found the height model, and we're going to look at the second question, how long till the ball hits the ground. So this is very similar to the question that a learner asked this week for the Q&A. And think about what number would represent the ground. It's kind of an interesting question, right? If it's something is on the ground, the height of that is at 0. That makes sense, right? So when the ball hits the ground, that means that the height is 0. And so how long until that happens means that we're finding time. We're finding a measure that will be our answer, will be in measures of a measure of time. So that kind of tells us that we're solving for t in our equation. And we want to know when the height is 0, what's the t value? So the height at a certain time is going to be 0. That's going to be the height. And we're going to figure out what time that is that happens. And remember, this is time in seconds. So it's not like it's days or hours. All right. So now we have a quadratic equation and it's set equal to 0. That's something we can solve with the quadratic function formula, excuse me. And so think about, we need to know our A, B, and C for quadratic formula. And so remember, this is in standard form. So A is -16, B is 72, and C is 6. And the quadratic formula, and if you need a copy of that, it's on my formula sheet. There will be a link. It's right here in your Algebra Student dashboard. So let's see. It's negative B, so -72 plus or minus the square root of B squared, so 72 squared minus 4 times A times C, and all of that's over 2A. So, okay, -16. So let's start to clean this up. I'm going to pull my calculator in. It does say we're going to round to the nearest 10th, so that's a good indication that we're likely to get a decimal here. Let me pull that in if I can. Try to come to a fairly empty spot. Now, I'm not going to type in the whole thing at once. I'm going to get the discriminant. Remember, that's just the part underneath the radical. 72 squared minus 4 times -16 times 6 is 5568. Let me erase that line going across here. Okay, so make sure that you've got that. So let's clean this up. -72 plus or minus, we'll talk about that in just a minute. Square root of 5568 over, I can go ahead and multiply 2 times -16. That's -32. Okay, so let's see what the square root of 5568 is. Not a nice clean number. I can check, but if it would simplify in terms into much simpler, my calculator would show that. So we're going to say -72 plus or minus 74 point. Now it does say to go to the 10th place. That is for a final answer. So at this point, I would go farther than that, 0.619 over -32. So this is key. And as you're doing this, you're getting into some higher level math. And so you need to think about, like, every time we round, we are getting farther from the actual answer or solution. And so even though my final answer, I'm going to round to the nearest 10th, I don't want to round here to the nearest 10th and then round at the end to the nearest 10th, and just keep getting farther and farther from the actual solution. And so I'm just going to extend it out. I'll go to 3 places. You could go to 4 or 5, depending on what you're doing in your curriculum. But I'm going to go to there for now, and then I'll round it at the end just so I'm a little bit closer. Okay, so now we have this crazy looking fraction with this plus or minus, and the question is usually, how do I type plus or minus in your calculator? And the sad answer is you don't. But all that means is that we're going to think of it, and don't jump to the calculator just yet. Let's break this apart into what it is. This is saying negative 72 plus 74, let me get my numbers right, 0.619 over negative 32. We're saying that is one solution to this question, but negative 72 minus all of that over negative 32 is the other solution, right? Quadratics are going to have two solutions many times, most of the time. Okay, so it's simply two separate problems. We were just writing it as one until now, but now that we actually need to do the computation, we want to think of it as one. So with this calculator, I have the luxury of typing it in as a fraction. If you don't have this one, that's okay. You can just type in the top, get an answer, and then hit divide by negative 32. Okay, so for this, I get that this is about negative 0.08, and it did say round to the nearest tenth, so I will round that to 1. That 0 goes up to 1 because the 8, moves it up to the next number. Okay, let's do the same thing. And this time we'll type it in with a plus sign. So with a minus sign, excuse me. All right. So I'm doing the bottom one, negative 72 minus that over negative 32. And that one's about 4.6. 4.6, the nearest tenth. Okay. So now we get to apply a little more brain power. We're not quite finished. It seems like we should be, right? So we're asked how long till the ball hits the ground. And we have two answers here, negative 0.1 seconds and 4.6 seconds. Does it make sense that we would have to throw out this negative answer because this is time. Time can't be negative. So our answer is about or approximately 4.6 seconds. Okay. So that is the answer to this question. The negative 0.1 is a solution to the function. It just doesn't work in this particular application because we're finding the amount of time. All right. You may have to watch that one again. That's okay. We're going to go on to another question with all of the same concepts in place. So stick around for that.